And this is Miss Nikita opening up today's Anti-Vlogmas vlog. So welcome to December 15th, 2021. This is her reaction to today's weather, which is contradictory and strange. We're in the 70s outside today, but it's overcast and very windy, but the wind is warm. But we are getting ready to head out on some errands. So, good evening. We just got back, and the wind must have gone absolutely berserk while we were gone. I mean, I was driving with 45 gusts hitting the side of the van today, but when we got back, we couldn't find the welcome mat. It was blown across the yard, so the welcome mat is put back in its place. The wind isn't as crazy right now, but everything went great on our appointment, and now we are getting ready to go out to eat. And I am back. We had a great supper, but I am very full. So now I thought this would be a good time to just give you another reason why I don't celebrate Christmas. And that reason today that I'm going to give you is because December 25th is not Jesus' birthday. December 25th is Baal's, Molech's, all of these false gods' birthday, Tammuz, they're all the same dude, where he was born around the solstice at the rebirth of the sun between December 21st and December 25th. But a lot of people will justify celebrating Christmas because they'll say, well, we don't know when Jesus was born. Maybe he was born around then, so we might as well celebrate it at this time because that's how it's been celebrated for all these years. But that is incorrect. We do know when Jesus was born. People will say, well, it doesn't say in the Bible when Jesus was born, and that is not true. It does say in the Bible when Jesus was born, okay? And that's just what I'm going to show you today, just a brief showing of that. Now, first of all, the Bible talks about when God created the stars in the creation account, the beginning of Genesis. He talks about how God created the stars, and one of the functions of the stars were to be for signs. So we're going to look at signs in the stars. We have read, for example, in Colossians chapter 2, being one of many places in the Bible, that talks about that the feasts are shadows of things to come. So we're going to look at just a few of the ways how Jesus is fulfilling and fulfills the Jewish feasts, and how looking at his fulfilling of these Jewish feasts also helps point us to his date of birth. And then we're going to look at just straight scriptures themselves. These three things put together show us when Jesus was born. So let's just start with scriptures, okay? So let's begin in Luke chapter 1. And of course, I would suggest you read the whole chapter, but we're just going to look at a few highlights for this part in this video. So Luke chapter 1, and take a look at verse 5. Okay, and that says, there was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest, by name Zacharias, of the course of Abijah, and his wife of the daughters of Aaron, and her name Elizabeth. So this is Mary's cousin Elizabeth, right? Okay, so then if you skip further down in the chapter to verse 36, and lo, Elizabeth, thy kinswoman, she also hath conceived a son in her old age, and this is the 6th month to her who is called barren. Okay, so we know from reading Luke chapter 1 that Mary conceived around the time Elizabeth was 6 months pregnant with John the Baptist. That means John the Baptist is 6 months older than Jesus. So if we can determine around when John the Baptist was born, then we can definitely determine when Jesus was born. Okay, so back up to Luke chapter 1 verse 5. It says in here that Zacharias, John the Baptist's father, was doing the course of Abijah. What is the course of Abijah? Okay, well, this is actually pointing us back to 1 Chronicles chapter 24 in the Old Testament. And that's where the Levitical priesthood courses were laid out. So there were multiple courses. There was 24 courses of the Levitical priests who would serve in the temple. And they were assigned who served on what course. Okay, so it says here that Zacharias was serving the course of Abijah. So in 1 Chronicles chapter 24, verse 10, it tells us, well, when is the course of Abijah? Because John the Baptist was conceived after Zechariah, his father, finished serving out the course of Abijah. So see how we can figure out around when John the Baptist was conceived. Okay, so 1 Chronicles chapter 24, verse 10 says, for Hakaz the 7th, for Abijah the 8th. So the course of Abijah is the 8th course. Now there's 12 months in the year. That's on the Gregorian calendar, but there's also 12 months in the year on the Hebrew calendar. So the Hebrew calendar and the Gregorian calendar are significantly different. Around the Hebrew months Tevet or Shavat is when we begin our year, January. But for them, that's like their 10th and 11th months while we're starting our first month. So that's one of the differences between the Hebrew calendar and the Gregorian calendar that we are under. Okay, so we know then that he served the 8th course. There's 2 courses per Hebrew month. So the 4th Hebrew month, Tammuz. And I don't know if I'm going to be pronouncing all these Hebrew months right or not, but the 4th Hebrew month is Tammuz. That's the month where courses 7 and 8 were served. Okay, and it says here, Zecharias, John the Baptist's father, was a priest who served the course of Abijah. That's the 8th course. Courses 7 and 8, it's in the Hebrew month Tammuz. That corresponds to our Gregorian month of part of June and into part of July. Okay, so now we know that John the Baptist was conceived sometime probably right after Zacharias finished doing his 8th course of Abijah. Okay, so then when does that put Jesus being conceived? So Jesus was conceived when Elizabeth, John the Baptist's mom, was 6 months along. So that means Jesus was conceived in the Hebrew month Tevet. That would be our end December, beginning part of January. Okay? And then, of course, you go 9 months after that, and it brings us to the Hebrew month Tishri. Hebrew month, I don't know how to pronounce that, but Tishri. The Hebrew month Tishri, that corresponds to the second part of our September and into the first part of our October. So we know now that we can at least narrow it down using the scriptures. We now know that Jesus was either born in September or October. Okay, so that we've got from the scriptures and lining up our current Gregorian calendar with the Hebrew calendar that they were using at these times. Now, let's look at the feasts to see if we can narrow things down more. We're going to look at the feasts and we're going to look at the signs and the stars. Okay, so Jesus was killed on a Jewish feast. He was killed on Passover, and he became our Passover lamb. So now we don't have to sacrifice a literal lamb every Passover. Now Jesus fulfilled Passover, being our Passover lamb. So we keep the Passover by being in Jesus, with him as our perpetual Passover lamb, right? So that's him fulfilling the Passover feast. So he was likely, therefore, also born on a Jewish feast day. And the likely feast day that Jesus was born on would be Sukkot. That's the Feast of Tabernacles. Tabernacle, the word tabernacle is synonymous with temple, and Jesus is the temple of God. So one of the places we see this is in John chapter 2, verses 19 through 21. And that says, Jesus answered and said to them, destroy this sanctuary or temple or tabernacle, and in 3 days I will raise it up. The Jews therefore said, 46 years was this sanctuary building, and wilt thou 3 days raise it up? But he spake concerning the sanctuary or tabernacle or temple of his body. So again, that was John 2, verses 19 through 21. So further, the Feast of Tabernacles was a feast that celebrated God's being present with his chosen people. And it's a time of remembrance when God was with Israel in the wilderness. It is about God tabernacling or dwelling with man. So Jesus, the sanctuary, temple, or tabernacle of God, was born in the month Tishri. Now, that would be late September or early October. So if Jesus was born in the year 3 BC, that would put his birthday on or very near September 29th. So let's look at now the stars. Let's look for the Star of Bethlehem. Have you ever looked in a program such as Stellarium where you can fast forward or back up time and look at the positions of the stars? And have you looked for the Star of Bethlehem? Well, the Star of Bethlehem, from when I backed up time in Stellarium, I saw that it was likely due to a very close conjunction between the star Regulus and the planet Jupiter. Now, what's interesting is Jupiter is known as the king planet, and Regulus, the regal star, is the king star. The king, Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, born as a baby in Bethlehem. The star that would herald his birth being a conjunction of a king planet and the king star so close together that it looked like one bright star. Okay, so if you wanted to look at this in a program such as Stellarium for yourself, you need to set the date on Stellarium to September 10th with the year -2. Okay, so September 10, -2. Now, -2 is an astronomical year for 3 BC. So set it to that, and then look in the constellation Leo. And what's so important about the constellation Leo in the Mazzaroth, or the constellations? Well, Jesus is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So we see in Revelation chapter 5, verse 5, it says, "And one of the elders saith to me, Weep not. Lo, overcome did the Lion, who is of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, to open the scroll and to loose the 7 seals of it." And if you keep reading, you see that it's talking about Jesus. Now, if you also look in Stellarium, you see this conjunction of Jupiter and Regulus in the constellation Leo, but not just anywhere in the constellation Leo, it's over Leo's heart. The Star of Bethlehem appears over the heart of the Lion constellation. So, let's get a timeline then, lining up with what we saw in the scriptures, that Jesus had to have been born sometime in late September, early October, and then let's see how the stars line up, and then let's see how it matches with the Jewish feasts. So, September 10th, 3 BC. That would be Tishri 1. So the Star of Bethlehem appears and stays apparent until September 19th, in which Jupiter moves away from Regulus, which is what leads the wise men towards Jerusalem. And was September 3 BC a feast day? Yes, it was a feast of trumpets. A trumpet used in the Bible is to call an alert, to get your attention. And that's what the Star of Bethlehem was. It was a yoo-hoo, something's going on here. And the Magi recognized that. Okay, so now we move on to September 19th, 3 BC, and that is Tishri 10. So Jupiter starts to noticeably move away from Regulus. By this time, it's very noticeably moving away from Regulus. So that's when it started actually leading the Magi towards Jerusalem. And what feast day is that on? Well, that is on the Day of Atonement. All right, so then the next feast day is actually a set of feast days, and it's between September 24th to September 30th. Okay, so September 24th to September 30th, 3 BC, all right, or Tishri 15 through 21, is the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, and the Feast of Tabernacles is likely going to be the time when Jesus was born. So then that narrows us down even more. Okay, we see the Star of Bethlehem appeared in the year 3 BC, astronomical year -2. So we have the year. And we already know from the scriptures that he must have been born either in late September or early October. So we narrowed that down. And we know also from the scriptures and from this timeline we've seen so far, he was likely born during the Feast of Tabernacles. Narrowing it down even more means he was born somewhere between September 24th and September 30th, 3 BC. Can we narrow it down more? Yes. Okay, so Jupiter represents the king planet. Venus, what's another name for Venus? The bright and morning star. And that's one of the titles given to Jesus in the Bible, the bright and morning star. On September 29th, 3 BC, the constellation Virgo, that's the Virgin constellation, Venus exits Virgo's womb. September 29th, 3 BC, the very likely date, or very close to it, of Jesus Christ's birth. So that's just another little tidbit from me today as to why I don't celebrate Christmas, because there is no Christmas. December 25th is Baal's birthday. Jesus was born likely on or very near September 29th, 3 BC. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap up and close this mini vlog here. It is almost 9 o'clock, and so I still need to edit and upload this little mini vlog for you, and then I'd like a little bit of time of unwind, because, woo, it has been a very busy day with lots of driving for me on a constantly high wind day. So I'm kind of fatigued with trying to keep the van on the road all the time. So gonna wrap this up here. Have a blessed day.